We do have a very robust Division I athletics department here at UND. We have 17 sports at this point, with our conferences being the Missouri Valley Football Conference, the National Collegiate Hockey Conference, and the Summit League. So the Summit League is the host of the majority of our sports that are listed there. Obviously, our men's hockey team is very competitive, one of the top teams in the country. And at the collegiate level, if we had a championship last year, we were number one going into playoffs, so it would have been a great year. But would have got to hang our 9th championship intercollegiately. But hopefully, this is the year for that. But this year, we are looking at our first year in the Missouri Valley Football Conference, and so we're excited about that. And our second year in the Summit League. So we do have, for those that are wondering, indoor and both outdoor track and field, as well as cross country for both men's and women's side. And then, as you can see there, the listing of all the other sports. So we do have quite an international community here in our athletics department. We do have roughly around north of 200 student athletes, and usually about 40 to 50 of them are international. About half that is typically Canadian. So we are obviously very close to the Canadian border here in North Dakota. Obviously, closest major city would be Winnipeg for reference if you're looking for where we're located. We do have, like I said, Canadian student athletes in many of our sports, golf, we've had tennis athletes. Obviously, we've had lots of men's hockey athletes on our men's team. Usually 25 to 50% of our men's hockey team is from Canada. We do have Canadian athletes in our softball and soccer teams as well in the recent past. So we are quite welcoming to Canadian athletes, and we do have an experience with recruitment and helping through the initial eligibility process, which is oftentimes can be cumbersome for students who are international. Go to the next one. Oops. Back one, if you could. Back two, one more. Thanks. So in academics, we do have a full staff that's ready to help you with your academic disciplines. We do have a staff inside of athletics that would be act as your advisors, and every team has their own advisor. And then we also have obviously professional advisors within all the academic programs. Our group that works with us in athletics, they are here to also help you get through the NCAA eligibility process of all the different requirements that are required to get through eligibility and to stay out playing your sport. We have learning specialists as well in athletics that are also there for tutoring to help those students who need a little extra attention. And then we have our own in athletics study centers and computer labs, also computers for the athletes to take as well if they need for one for the road or for a team trip. Next one. So as I mentioned, there is some various steps, especially for international students, to be eligible as an NCAA athlete. There are the same requirements as American students. You have to have 16 core courses, and it has listed there, as you can see in that slide, 4 years of English, 3 years of math, 2 years of natural physical science, and then 1 year of additional full core in your math, English, or science. And then 2 years of social science, and then 4 years of additional 4 years credits of other core. And that can be your languages, other things like that. Oftentimes, especially when we get to the different Canadian provinces, as you all know, probably the provinces do award credits differently across the country there. So it is quite important, depending on the province that you're from, that you do work with the school that's recruiting you, and that they can help you navigate to make sure that all of your credits are counting properly, but also that you're getting the full credit that you should for the various courses, especially as we know, grade 9 often in Canada is counted differently than the years that follow. So it can be something that you want to make sure that you go to a school if you want to be an athlete that has a Canadian experience with recruitment. Additionally, there are some other requirements. If you're able to compete, it's called being a full qualifier. If you are a full qualifier, you have all those courses that I listed, but you also have a certain GPA, and you have, in non-COVID years, you have an SAT or ACT that balances. So right now there is sort of a moratorium for the NCAA for testing, for test scores for the 2021 graduating class. For graduating classes after that, we'll have to see how hopefully COVID will be done with, so we won't have to worry about that. but right now there are some moratoriums for the class of 2020 and 21. So it is something to make sure you're communicating with your recruiting coach, but also the school, the compliance office there, so they can make sure that you're doing the things that you need to do in order to be eligible that first year. If something were to happen, if there's a hiccup or there's something that doesn't match up and you are what's called a non-qualifier, then you would just sit your first year in residence and you would study and do everything else. And but you would have to, there are some restrictions on your ability to participate at that point. The other thing to talk about too is the academic red shirt, which is another term for the NCAA, and that is another eligibility status that would allow you to practice but not compete that first year. Your full qualifier status and your academic redshirt status both do allow you to earn your athletic scholarship, but your non-qualifier status, you would not be able to get your scholarship that year. So it's really important that you begin early with an American institution like UND, and you start communicating with them and your coaches about your academic accomplishments. Usually we always see most of our, we see Canadian students do perform quite well, and we usually have quite great success in getting them through the programs. This next slide is a little bit about our day in the life of a student athlete here at UND. And just so you guys know, the NCAA does put on requirements for how many hours athletes can do certain things. And so generally it's no more than 4 hours of mandatory activity a day. And so it's kind of broken up usually. So the schedule I put here is an example of our men's hockey and our women's soccer schedules. They do share facilities in the Ralph Engelstad Arena. And so if you've looked at that facility, it is quite impressive, and it's got, I think it holds 12,000 people, and the students have right up front and around center ice level, and it's a really exciting environment. It's top of the line ice rink for especially college hockey, if not pro hockey, throughout the country. So they start at 6 a.m. with some sort of morning stretch and conditioning. Then there's going to be a team breakfast, as this is the men's hockey dining room. They have their own dining room and facility in their space. Then they'll go to class from 8:30 to 1:30 or so, and then have lunch again when they return to the facility before practice and meetings. And then dinner will follow, all being provided in the space for these teams. After that, obviously they've got free time. Obviously it's gonna be studying or some social time. But it's really a dedication to being an NCAA student athlete, as you guys all know, just as you guys are dedicating to your sports now. One thing with UND is there is a live in the dorm requirement for the first year on campus. And so that's the current policy. So obviously sometimes things do change, but that is the policy for now. We do have 2 beautiful dining halls on our campus that are, one is very new, and then everything else has been updated. And then we do have a new student union that is just going to be really spectacular, opening for the 21-22 school year. At this point is the schedule, I believe. So we're really excited to have that opening, and that'll be offering more franchise restaurants. I don't know if we can say which ones. I don't know if we're allowed to publicly say what restaurants they're going to be, but it's definitely, there's really exciting things coming for campus. Let's see. For scholarships, we can talk about that next. So all 17 all sports have NCAA scholarships, and so some schools sometimes scholarship their teams differently. All of our sports are primarily almost fully funded. We do believe, obviously, in equity at this campus. So our men's and women's sports are fully funded equitably and fairly. Scholarships are annually reviewed and renewed by the coaching staff. So athletic scholarships in NCAA Division I are totally in control of the coaching staff. So we as administrators, we don't have a say in that, but there are NCAA rules protecting your rights on your scholarships. So at our school, they're reviewed annually. So some schools might do them multi-year deals. We only have single-year scholarships. So the other thing is that our scholarships are, they combine, the NCAA and the federal government have rules on how much scholarship dollars you can get. So there are limits on if you were to get an athletic aid scholarship and a UND scholarship of some kind, and balancing that against your cap or your limit as an individual student. And so that's something that when those times come, we in athletics will talk you through that and help you make decisions about what scholarships to accept. Because some scholarships would put you over your possible limits. Next one. As I was saying, some scholarships do count against your limits and others do not. Our scholarships here, we're pleased and blessed to offer scholarships that include personal expenses, also called cost of attendance scholarships. So our scholarships do cover tuition and fees, room and board, books, and personal expenses. And so it is, you could see a point, especially if you're a freshman, you typically could see a refund of roughly $3,400 per year to you to use for personal expenses like travel and things like that, if you're living in the dorms as required. In-state scholarships can be anything from 1% up to 100%, and obviously your refunds and your scholarship totals are percentages of the total of all those things, the athletics aid that listing there. I do want to note out, and this is across all universities that you look at, not just UND, that in the U.S., if as an international student, when you come to the U.S., there is a tax on your non-tuition and fees portion of your scholarship, and that's a 14% rate. That's not a thing UND sets. That's a entire U.S. country-based thing. So every school you go to as an international student, you would be seeing that tax.